Welcome to the Hopefulist with me, Wendy McClure. This is where we turn those nasty, negative thoughts into positive and work toward a happy, fulfilled life. Now, let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Hopefulist. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we have a special guest, Tere Marie Martini, who is a holistic, reproductive health educator and coach. Hello there, Tere.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for taking the time to hopefully enlighten us. And I guess this is when I should put the spoiler out. If anybody's listening with their significant other, spouse, men, we're going to be talking about periods.
We sure are. We sure are.
So our focus today is going to be on our monthly cycle, if we have one, and how we can make it work for us instead of this theory that it makes us insane. So please tell us more about making it work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. This is such a great topic. So, quite often in our culture, we are taught that our period is something to be endured, that it is our um, monthly terror, that we are crazy for a couple weeks out of the month. But
It's
this
the
narrative,
curse.
the curse, thank you. Yes, the curse, right? But this narrative is totally a construct that is absolutely false. As women and people with cycles, we have four distinct phases that we move through each turn of the cycle, each month. We'll just call it a month. Some people don't really have a exact month, but for lack of a better term. So what we actually do is in how I work with people is I teach people to live in harmony with these distinct phases rather than brush up against them, right? So we may notice that for a couple weeks out of the month, we feel like, a little closer to home. We're feeling a little nesty. We're feeling a little quieter, that we don't especially feel like engaging in social activities or um, working at maximum output, right? Many of us
Mm-hmm.
notice this premenstrually, we'll call it. So, what we're taught culturally is to push, 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 to not listen to those whispers of our bodies. So, we are in this mindset, in America and probably beyond, that we are supposed to be productive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 30 days each month, right?
Exactly.
So when we're pushing against what our body's natural proclivities are, that's when we really start to experience the anxiety, the depression, the moodiness, all of these symptoms that we typically associate with PMS. This goes beyond the emotional symptoms and it goes into the physical symptoms. Some people are having horrible hormone induced headaches. They're having heavy cramping, extra heavy flow with their bleeding. And while some of these are physical issues, we can really look back and attribute this to how we are honoring or not honoring our bodies.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So, what, in your opinion, then, should we be doing in in order to, I guess, battle back from this?
Yeah.
And what should we be doing instead of ignoring the signs and the symptoms and pushing forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first and foremost, we need to create a new narrative. And I as you and I are women, I have children, I have a family, many other people do, and we are taught that we need to constantly give, 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 but not refill the well, right? So the well is running
Absolutely.
dry all the time. So first and foremost, we need to rewrite the narrative in our minds that to be contributing, to be productive, we need to embrace the full circle. We need to um, embrace rest and we need to embrace that output. And both are equally as important. Um, so it starts there. Once we understand that honoring our cycles, that honoring the full circle, if you will, is going to get us more success and more satisfaction in life, then we start to really dive in and learn about our bodies. It is my goal to create this environment where everyone is an expert on their body. Everybody that I come in contact with, because believe it or not, there are signals. We call them biomarkers that your body gives you every single day that indicates your hormonal status and where you are on that continuum of the four phases.
What are some of
So
these
once,
signals? Let me just stop you for 1 second.
yeah,
What is the signal that we should be looking for?
absolutely. Great question. The most important one, if you were to choose one biomarker, I would say you need to look at your cervical mucus every day.
Well,
And
that's
this
not
is,
fun.
well, depending on how you view it, yeah. So it again, this is another interesting concept because culturally we are taught that if we are seeing something come out of our bodies, something come out of our vagina, that it's not okay,
It's
that it's
shameful.
dirty, shameful. Exactly. Something is wrong with you. I mean, myself went through most of my teenage years feeling like there was something wrong with me because I was seeing this cervical fluid, but it is 100% normal and healthy. You should be seeing that. If you're not seeing some, then that's an indication that there's something a little bit off in the system. So, throughout the month, what happens is your cervical fluid changes quality and consistency due to the effects of estrogen and progesterone on your system. Without getting too deep into the weeds, basically what you're going to see is an increase of this cervical fluid and more slippery, lubricative quality to it as you near ovulation. After you ovulate, there is an abrupt, sharp change to um, very little cervical fluid. So that is probably the number one indicator that you can check every day, visually, tactile, whatever way you choose to do it. The secondary one would be temperature. Um, if you take your temperature every day at the same time, under the same conditions, like right before getting out of bed, you'll see that it's more consistent for the first half of your cycle. After you ovulate, your temperature will increase up to a degree Fahrenheit and it will remain high until you menstruate.
And you mean take your temperature down there?
You can take your temperature down there. Honestly, under the tongue is a great way to do it.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That's better.
yeah, yes, yeah. Some people choose to take it vaginally, but for most of us, under the tongue is just fine.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is, those quick read thermometers don't really give you an accurate reading.
Hmm.
Yeah, so those are the top two ways to tell what's going on in your body. Obviously, there's a lot of other little tips and tricks we can do along the way as well, but those are usually more curtailed to the individual. Um,
So what
yeah,
does
so
that mean with having when we recognize, if we do start to recognize the patterns and where
mhm,
we are
mhm,
on our cycle, how do we
mhm.
lean into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So over time, you'll create a chart, and that's a whole other thing. But once you start to see the patterns, you say, okay, I consistently have a 28-day cycle. I know that I generally ovulate between day 12 and 14 of this cycle. From that, you can start to organize your calendar by the month, right? So you can say, okay, I know days 1 to 7. I'm generally, feeling a little tired those first couple days. I feel my energy increasing towards day 7. Um, so I know to pencil in rest for myself during those first couple days, right? To not schedule meetings, to maybe not take a vacation, not host Thanksgiving dinner, all those kinds of things. Um, as we move towards that ovulation, we will notice our energy increasing. So that is the time when we want to do things such as have challenging conversations. We want to ask our boss for a raise. This is the time of the month when we are the most verbose, when we have the power of persuasion in our speech. This is when we can really show up for the heavy duty lifting. If we are training at the gym, this is when we want to incorporate more hit workouts or a little more aerobic activity, something like that. Um, After we hit that ovulation point, we start to notice, a few days after that the energy decreases. So again, this is when we pencil in a little more rest for ourselves, where we don't push ourselves. We maybe don't take the overtime at work. Um, this is called the luteal phase, the week or two before the period. This is a great time to finish up tasks, to do book work, to do organizing. Our brain is actually more inclined to do that work at the time. We're under the influence of progesterone, which really helps to repair brain tissue. So we are just kind of on point for those fiddly little tasks during that time of the month. So, overall, once you start to see this pattern, you can literally sit down with your calendar and start to block out time for yourself. And if you're able to honor that time and honor those boundaries that you set, you'll start to see more ease in your life. You'll feel like you're more in the flow of life and you're not swimming upstream so much. It's really a beautiful process.
So it seems that you're more tired and sluggish right after your cycle ends, and then again right before you ovulate. Did I catch that right?
Well, it's more like this. So when we say the first day of menstruation is day 1, the beginning of the cycle.
Mm.
So usually what people feel is the last week of the cycle in the first few days of the cycle. So generally when you think of typical PMS, like the week leading up to your period and the first few days of your period, that's when you're feeling a little logy, you're feeling a little more withdrawn, you might not want to be social. And then after you finish bleeding, you'll start to notice this increase in energy. You'll ovulate. Ovulation is peak energy. And then you'll slowly see that downslide again as you move towards your menstruation again.
Okay. Um, so what does it mean when you start to lose your cycle? It's now, you're older, you're
Yeah.
getting it's very inaccurate cycles, I guess I should say. I'm having a hard
Yeah.
time putting the right words into it, but you're getting it hit or miss, so you might have it 1 month and then not for another 3 months or 6 months or what have you. What is
Yeah.
going on, you know, with your body during this time?
Yeah. That's a great question. So we call this perimenopause. Perimenopause is the time that leads up to menopause. It can be anywhere from 5 to 10 years, depending on the person. Menopause is what we actually consider a full year of non menstruation. After the year, then we say someone has entered menopause. So as we lead up to menopause, we notice that, yeah, our periods become really irregular. We can't track when they're coming, when they're going, they're heavy, they're light, we're feeling crazy and all over the map. Sadly, that this is a transition that every person who menstruates goes through. We can get ahead of it. The more healthy ovulatory cycles we have leading up to perimenopause, the better. And there's so many ways to support your cycle. How to support yourself while this transition is happening is really focusing on these pillars of health, making sure that your nutrition is on point, that you're getting enough sleep, that you're moving your body, that you're managing anxiety and depression. And as I said, really the best medicine here is preventative medicine is, you know, when you're about 35 or so, or even really your whole life, you should be encouraging healthy ovulations. But when you're in that 30-year-old phase or so, really focusing on making sure that you're doing all that you can to have healthy ovulations every month. I will tell you, stress is probably the most detrimental um, factor to unhealthy cycles, right? So the more we can reduce stress in our life, the better we can care for ourselves and regulate our nervous system. the better chance we will have at having a milder transition to menopause. Now, once we hit menopause, I love to suggest that people start to look to the cycle of the moon. As many of us know, the moon is on a 28-day cycle. It also has this rise and fall and this cyclical activity to it. We have a new moon. Today is actually the new moon, where the moon appears black. You don't see anything in the sky. The moon increases in its visibility till we hit the full moon. Obviously, we all know what that looks like. And then the moon slowly decreases in its visibility and goes back to the new moon. We can apply the same concepts of our cycle. The new moon would signify the menstruation phase, the full moon would signify the ovulation phase. And we kind of can just start to organize our lives in sync with the moon once we've stopped menstruating. Um,
So, I wanted to ask, what kind of differences have you seen in some of your clients, or maybe yourself, or people that you know that lean into this process compared to when they didn't pay any attention to it in the past?
yeah. Yeah, it's a world of difference. It really is. When we are, you know, constantly, you know, trying to swim upstream, when we are, our body is asking us for rest and we are saying, go, go, go. This is really, I'll talk about my own personal experience. This is where I really experienced increased anxiety. Like, why am I not able um, to speak in public, right? That's a huge one for me. Why am I not able to get the words out of my mouth? Why am I so exhausted? Why can I not show up for my clients or my family without feeling this resentment? And it's really all because I was pushing when I was supposed to be resting a little bit. Um, I also really believe in energetics, and I know when I start projects, when I am in that pre-ovulatory phase, what let's just talk about like a exercise regimen. If I start that practice in that second week of my cycle as I'm heading toward ovulation, I maintain that practice for a long, long time. If I start a exercise practice during the last week of my cycle, I might do it 3 or 4 times, and then it just does not stick. It's because we are working with the energy of increase, or we're working with the energy of releasing.
So it's not my fault.
It's not your fault. See? I mean, really, if you're
Yes.
trying to ditch the sugary sweets or whatever while you're in this increasing energy, it just might not work. Save that for when you're bleeding. Let it go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about irritability and the
Mm,
typical PMS symptoms where women get emotional and irritable. And, again, this age old, women are crazy.
yeah.
So what is it that causes that more severely in some, I guess, and how can we help ourselves to limit that? Because I have to say, I'm in menopause now, so
Mhm.
I'm good.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, that's not a piece of cake either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I really never experienced a ton of emotional upheaval. I didn't get any more irritable than usual. I didn't have a ton of cramping. I don't know if I was just lucky. Like, early in
Yeah.
my life, I had boyfriends tell me I can't even tell when you're on your cycle, because I really just didn't change that much. So, is this just something that is hereditary, that you would be born with certain more severe symptoms?
Yeah, I think it's something to look into when someone is experiencing really terrible symptoms. Generally, that indicates that there is some hormonal issue going on. Now, again, back to the cultural narrative that the period is the curse. Well, it's not supposed to be. If we think about how intelligently designed our system is, our cardiovascular system, our nervous system, our skeletal system, I mean, it's not like women were created with this one huge flaw that was the reproductive system that
It's
keeps
what
us
brings life into the
right.
world.
Right. So it's like it is the most miraculous of all systems. It's not designed as something to keep you crampy and moody and this and that. Now, I will say, of course, we notice these mild shifts. We notice that we want to be a little more reserved or stay close to home or whatever, but it should not be a night and day kind of scenario, right? If you are noticing really horrendous mood swings, then we need to take a deep dive into your hormones and see what's going on. To me, so here's the thing: progesterone is the hormone that's created in the second half of the cycle when we most often feel those moody tendencies or depression, anxiety, whatever it is. If if we're feeling those things more so, that indicates that we're not producing enough progesterone. Why? Because progesterone is actually a hormone that's like nature's antidepressant, nature's anti anxiety. Progesterone is the hormone of pregnancy. It's what makes pregnant people so beautiful and radiant. We have an increase of it towards the end of pregnancy when many people talk about that feeling that they want to nest, that they want to um, make the home very hospitable for the new baby. It's quite a wonderful hormone. And if we don't have enough of it, that is when we see the mood swings, the depression, the anxiety. Um, and why might we not have enough progesterone in our system? Because our ovulation wasn't strong and healthy. If we don't have a healthy ovulation, we won't produce enough progesterone.
Hmm.
Um, so that's quite often why. Another reason could be an excess of estrogen. Estrogen is the hormone that makes us ovulate. It is the hormone that creates this energetic state in us. Some people who are a little more high strung to begin with may even notice that with ovulation, they feel a little more anxious. So, our system is designed to have this surge of estrogen and then detoxify it from the system. If we don't detoxify it from the system properly, then we have an abundance of estrogen that creates this deficit of progesterone. Without getting too in the weeds about it, we need to have balanced hormones to feel good. If we're not feeling good, we're probably not having balanced hormones.
And this is probably something that we would need to speak to our doctor about.
Yeah, so this goes back to monitoring our biomarkers. I would always, always, always suggest that someone take their healing into their own hands first. If you go to the doctor today and you say, I would like, a sex hormone panel, they probably will say no to begin with. It's a very sad state of affairs. But if they do say yes, they really don't test accurately. You need to test for progesterone at the right time in your cycle because it does ebb and flow. Most docs, if they prescribe a hormone panel, they'll just say, yeah, go in when it's convenient for you, not go in on day 21, which is when we should have the most progesterone in our system, which would be the most optimal time to test. Um, so I always suggest learning how to track your cycle and seeing if you can recognize the patterns first. Working with someone like myself or a holistic reproductive health practitioner would be very useful to someone. Once you have a few months of your cycle charts, you can take those to the doctor and say, "Hey, listen, here's a record of my health. This is what I'm seeing. Can you help me out?" And you can have a more informed conversation at that point.
Yeah,
Um,
because if it's a lack of hormones, that's something that usually would need um, medicinal treatment, or am I wrong?
quite often, sometimes it does. Sometimes there is a very sometimes there's an unsolvable problem. Endometriosis tends to be a very tricky condition to solve with lifestyle, diet, and nutrition. But most of our hormonal complaints really do come back to how we are fueling our body, how we are resting our body, and how we're regulating our nervous system.
Well, why do we
Um,
want brownies all the time then?
oh, I know, because they're so good, right? So, and this is the thing, if you even look at your eating habits, you may see these patterns. We need extra calories in the second half of our cycle. Progesterone is a hormone that's energy intensive to produce. So we want those carbs, we want those sweets because our body needs those extra calories. Um, and of course, the foods we eat do have, there's other things going on, right? We're getting a dopamine um, hit when we eat those brownies. Like, it feels good. It's just kind of like if we were to, drink alcohol or do a drug, or even when we're with some people, right? When we're with someone that we love and that we're attached to, we get an oxytocin boost. I mean, I'll tell you what, hormones are amazing, and there are so many in our bodies. If we were taught a little bit more about our hormones, I think our health would be completely different than it is today. Um,
Especially for
so
the fact that, women deal with the hormones so much more.
yeah,
And that's why maybe is not put on the front burner as much as it should be.
yeah,
And, it just goes back to this. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it, but
yeah, yeah.
I just think
I
back
know.
to all of these times when, and my husband doesn't do it. Thank goodness. That's why is my husband. But so many of my boyfriends, oh, are you on your period?
Yeah, yeah,
And there is just this insane urge to punch someone in the face when they say that, when they have no idea what it's like.
right, right. And that it's actually our superpower, like, we are, if we are paying attention to what's happening to us hormonally, it is a ton of information about our health and our overall wellness, right? Um, I really see it as a gift rather than a curse,
Mm-hmm.
because I can just tune into my body that much more. I can know if I need more omegas in my life. I don't know. It's just so many things. I can really honor my body and show up for my life. I can show up for my family. I can show up for my career. Um, and quite frankly, men just don't have that advantage. They wake up the same person every day. They don't have a monthly report card that gives them all of this information about their bodies. Um, so I really, yeah. I mean, when someone says, "Oh, you're hormonal," I'm like, "Well, yes, I am. Thank you. I am hormonal." You know, and
That's good. I like that.
yeah, I absolutely am, and I can use it to my highest good, that's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me where we can all find you. Where are all the places that you're at?
Yeah, so, a great place is my website. It's just www.treemariemartini.com. I'm on Instagram. My handle is Cycle Alchemist. I'm on the Facebook. You can find me there. Cycle Alchemy is my page. I have a nice little online community that is a wonderful resource for all of these things that we've talked about today. If you'd like to join, um, those are probably the best places.
All right, and you said that you were going to offer a special deal for people listening today.
Yeah, I do. So what I am offering is a complimentary first coaching session with me. So if you head to the website, you will see on the front page a little place to click and book a free session. You could just make a note that you heard me on Wendy's podcast, and we'll
The
take it from
Hopefulist.
there. The Hopefulist. Thank you. It escaped me.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, there's so much information going around in the brain all this time, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Well, Tree, thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. It's been a very enlightening conversation.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for the opportunity, Wendy. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
You take care. And thank you so much for joining uh, and listening to the Hopefulist. Now, I hope that you go out there and be badass. I am always cheering you on.